It's Wake Up Worlds, play-ins, day 5. Mad Lions become sad Lions as they're eliminated from the tournament. SuperMassive make history with the first ever TCL win over a major region team in a best-of-5 series. Can LGD make it out of play-ins tomorrow? And is Orn really overpowered?
Wall, they're immediately using the twisted fate. Mark goes in. Wow. Ase goes down. LGD, they find their chance and they immediately just jump on it. Double kill for Kramer. That's all she wrote.
2K getting lower and lower. Can they secure it? Arome is taking down Snowflower. It's a messy fight. Who's going to finish it in the end? Shadow manages to find it, and that is massive. Super massive. 3 members sleepy. The Zoe goes back over the wall. Unstoppable now as Bolulu goes into the fight. Big haymaker across the backside. And Cacao is playing clean up. Mad Lions thought they found their opportunity, but SuperMassive take it away in an instant. Oh, they're going to get taken out. They're going to get cut down in their own base, and the TCL, for the first time in World's history, will win a best-of-5 versus a major region team. They will send the 4th seed from the LE.
Day 5 of the World Championship is in the books, and we're here to break it all down. It's Wake Up Worlds. Welcome one, welcome all to Wake Up Worlds, our ESPN Esports daily League of Legends World Championship program. Thank you so much for watching us live, whether you're watching us on Twitch, on the ESPN app, on Twitter, or YouTube. We appreciate it. Welcome. Join the family. We will be here every step of the way until a League of Legends World Champion is crowned. I'm Arda, he's Tyler, and one team that cannot lay claim to that title and will not be world champion this year, Tyler, surprisingly to many, is Mad Lions. My goodness. One of the most surprising results in League of Legends World Championship history occurred today.
They are the second ever major region team alongside Hong Kong Attitude from 7 to not make it through the play-in stage, and they are the first major region team to be eliminated in the play-ins by a wild card region team. This time, it being massive, and yeah, it's a shock. And I know there's some people right now on the internet saying, "I told you so. I never believed in the Mad Lions. Why did they even go there? Oh, we wish Schalke No Fear was there. I wish we would have rather had Vitality there than Mad Lions. What a bunch of chokers!" And it's disheartening. It sucks. It's really, as a North American fan, I know how it feels to have your region and your teams dissected, picked apart, made fun of repeatedly on Reddit, social media, Twitch, YouTube, all around the world, people making fun of your teams, and it sucks. It's a team that had 4 rookies on it who've had 14 games of on-stage experience, and their ace player, Humanoid, is a 2-year player, still a very young, up-and-coming player, is their ace, their anchor, their rock, and he had to face off a team against who was banning almost every single one of his champions. He was getting picked on every single game, and he was still performing to a high level. So we're going to dive into Mad Lions to start the show, but my first thoughts is it's hard. It's really hard looking on social media right now, and there's a lot of good things. Like, I'm seeing a lot of people. I saw Parth, who's on TSM, the coach of TSM. He knows a thing or two about, fan backlash of not performing to expectations at the stage. And I've seen a lot of good, positive feedback to the Mad Lions. There's always going to be fans who hate on them and say they didn't deserve their spot. But for the most part, I think most fans and most teams are seeing it as it is. It's an L. It's a big L, and it's a piece of humble pie, and it's kind of a serving of, it doesn't matter it's not like every LEC team or every LCK or every LPL team can come to Worlds now and just dominate. I think we can put that to rest finally, is the 7th place LEC team can't just come to Worlds and slap the best Turkish team or a top 3 NA team. There's levels to these. Mad Lions, they're rookies. They got beaten up. They got knocked out. They're going to take their lumps, and I think in the long run, this is going to help them.
On our ESPN League of Legends Predictor, which you can join for free at espn.com/League of Legends Predictor, thousands of people are making their picks and battling against their friends and each other. Shout out to Sokori and to PGH, who are 7-1 right now. They are leading the thousands of people that are playing along. You can also find us on the ESPN Fantasy app. Just click on the trophy tab. Make sure to make your picks for tomorrow's best of 5 series. Don't be like me and completely forget to do that today, because I could have gotten some points. I'm still stuck in the 3,000s somewhere. It's ridiculous. But the reason I bring this up right now is because 82% of people playing in the League of Legends Predictor, Tyler, picked Mad Lions to win Group A, and
Not
now
me.
they are on the
Not
outside
me.
looking in.
Not
you.
me, Arda. Guess who I picked, Arda? Guess who I picked?
Who did you pick?
I picked Team Liquid.
Of course you did.
I picked the right choice. I'm a big
Gotcha.
brain. I'm in the top 500, Arda. I'm not here down at the plebeians picking Mad Lions and LGD Gaming to win their groups. I'm in the highest tier of intelligence, picking Team Liquid to go on. But let's talk more about Mad Lions. I think that they deserve a big chunk of this episode about, this is a pretty historic following. Even though I do think there is, I won't say excuses, but there's reasons why they fell this early in the.
So you mentioned Humanoid being targeted. In particular, Game 3, all 5 bans were targeted to Humanoid. He brought out the Cassiopeia, still had a good game with it. But really, this was a good game plan in many of the games by SuperMassive. As much as people will want to dunk on this because optically, it's the LEC team getting eliminated by, the TCL, who never show up at Worlds and, have only been to the group stage twice in Worlds history, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This was a really good game plan in many parts by SuperMassive and some good individual performances as well. But what did you see before we get to SuperMassive, though, Mad Lions? Where did this crumble, in your opinion? If you were to look at some of the weak links here, where did this go wrong for them?
I mean, it went wrong the first game and the first few minutes of that game. I mean, let's go back to the opening match of Worlds 2020. It was INTZ versus Mad Lions. And I think the moment everyone remembers is Tay teleporting wrongly onto a minion and wasting his teleport and looking like a fool. But the thing is, in a world where Tay, who's an amazing player and doesn't make that mistake and the nerves doesn't get to him, he kills Shadow. And he gets a first blood, and there's a very good chance Mad Lions go 0-4 in the group stage, and they're just straight out the most embarrassing defeat in World's history, possibly, if that one TP play goes wrong. And Shadow had a very weak tournament. He had statistically and just from performance-wise one of the worst tournaments of any player in the play. He looked lost a lot of the time. He looked disjointed. He was very over-eager and over-aggressive and on his ganks. There were so many times he would go to the top lane, including that first gank that almost should have got him killed versus Tay against INTZ, where he just tried to raw muscle a gank to happen. Even if there was no real setup there and there was no real even opening for him to make that gank happen, he tried to force things. And he tried to force these like square pegs through a circle hole, and it just didn't fit. And it just kept pushing at it. And in correspondence to that, Orome also had a very weak tournament. He had one really good set game today, but aside from that, he was outclassed by almost every single top laner he was against. He got solo killed by Impact's Mordekaiser. He got put down against almost every single top laner he played against. So their top side was almost non-existent and almost had no influence over the entire series of games they played. All 10 games they played, the top side of the map almost had zero influence or zero impact to their name, which meant that it had to come down to Humanoid in the bot side. And for the bot side, for a majority of the series, they put Karzi on things like Wukong, and they had the Senna Wukong fasting Senna strategy, which is you already have your top side toothless with no real bite to their game, and now you're making your bot side equally as useless when it comes to having a bit of bite and having a bit of a carry potential, which put all of it on Humanoid. And I applaud Humanoid for how he played. He played amazingly. Coming from where he was on Splice last year, where he was kind of, the fifth man on Splice, the fourth or fifth man on Splice, kind of always being forgotten, kind of the utility piece on a team of, Xerxes and Kabe. But this year, he's the ace, and he showed up like an ace. This was like a pure TSM Bjergsen performance where everyone was throwing their bans on him, and he still performs to the best of his abilities. He really played his heart out, and I give him a lot of credit, but let's facts be facts. And I can say all the things about Shadow and Orome and all that, but this meta that what we've seen throughout the entire playing stage is almost all of these games come down to team fighting. Almost every single one of these come around to a sole team fight or an ARAM where it's 5v5 going down mid lane, and it's coming down to these quick executions and which team is more cohesive than the other. And quite frankly, over the last 5 days of watching these two teams play, SuperMassive was just the more cohesive team. Cacao in the jungle matchup, of which General controlled their team better into battle with Hecarim and Lilia. He was out experienced and outperformed Shadow, and Shadow he's a really good mechanically young player, but his champion pool needs to expand. It got picked on a lot during the group stage, and I think this is a good experience for him. He's playing Cacao. Cacao is a legend. He was at Worlds in 2015. He's an OGN champion. He's an original. He's a South Korean MVP back in 2014. Cacao's not going to be surprised by anything, and Cacao played amazing today and was everything that Shadow had, Cacao had it and 10 times more. So while Shadow and Arome were the weak links of the team, and I think some of their drafts were a bit wonky, it really does come down to the team overall just wasn't good enough. SuperMassive as a team, as a 5-man unit, were better than Mad Lions. This was not a choke. This was not an upset. SuperMassive are the better team than Mad Lions.
To tie a bow on the Mad Lions conversation, a lot was made about the fact, just going off the rift for a second here and how moving away from the meta conversation. This is a young team, and they only won one domestic series, as Jacob Wolf wrote in the article on ESPN.com/esports. They only won one playoff series, and they underperformed at Worlds by many people's expectations. I know that this is a conversation for a little bit later, possibly closer to free agency. But what do you think happens to this team next? To tie a bow on Mad Lions, do you think we'll see changes? Do you think the team will stay the same? Do you think it's too early? This team is young. What are your thoughts immediately right now after this series?
I think it would be foolish to say, let's keep the 5 men together. Let's go run it back. I mean, every team, it doesn't matter if you're, top esports or if you're Mad Lions or if you're the worst team in the LCS, you're always looking to make your team the best it possibly can be. Obviously, in a perfect world, Afari's a free agent. He's the best top laner in Europe. If you could get him, I don't think Mad Lions could. I think there's going to be many teams, not just in Europe, but in North America and around the world gunning for Afari. But I do think we have not seen the peak of Mad Lions. It would not be the end of the world. It wouldn't be the worst thing possible if these 5 players come back into the LEC next year and play together. It probably would be the best option they have if they can't just break the bank open, right? Obviously, you would love Alfari, you would love every high-end player, but I think running these 5 back, coming into the LEC season where they hopefully can play on stage, maybe fans will come back as the year goes on, and they'll gain that experience. And luckily for them, Worlds 2021, where is it, Arda?
It is also in China, as you reported, Tyler.
It's back in China, so it's a redemption story. They have a chance. I think they come home, and if they're if they come back as 5, they keep the coaching staff, and it's a redemption story next year. They have a goal now. Their goal now is to go back to China and make up for this embarrassing effort. They were too good to fall down like this. Like, I know Karzi's a very prideful person. I interviewed him earlier in the tournament. He felt like they were better than what they showed, and they never showed better than what they did on day one. So I want to see them have that redemption story. I think, obviously, if you get Alfari, if you can get these top-end players, go for it. But more than likely, I think you run it back, you bring them back, you get them the actual stage experience they need, and hopefully next time around, if they make it to Worlds 2021, they can have a better Chinese showing.
It's refreshing to hear you say that, because a lot of people, we know how fast esports moves.
Oh, yeah.
We know how hasty decisions are made, even sooner than this. Right?
Yeah.
Like, you could forgive or even just, assume. No one would be shocked if Mad Lions made changes just because of the fast-moving nature of League of Legends, let alone all of esports. So to hear you say that is very refreshing. And I'm sure it's refreshing for many people who are either fans of the TCL, fans of Supermassive, or even fans of an underdog story to see what happened as we now look at the other side of the coin here, the team that did eliminate Mad Lions. I'm talking about Papara Supermassive. This is historic in many ways, Tyler. This is the first time a wildcard region team beat a major region in a best of 5 and eliminated them in a best of 5. This is the first time that this is ostensibly, and I did my research on this, the biggest Turkish team victory in world's history. Fenerbahce defeated Hong Kong Attitude in the first game of play-ins in 2017. But this victory far eclipses that because this was an elimination situation and a best of 5. There's only 2 teams in from the TCL that have made groups in world's history, and Supermassive are not quite there yet, but you will forgive their fans and the players if they celebrate this even for a few hours.
Oh, they should. Hats off to Supermassive because this was not a choke. This was not Mad Lions playing under their level. This was their level at Worlds. They did not underperform of what they could do at Worlds in this meta. Supermassive were just far better than Mad Lions, and they are the better team, and they deserve to move on. And just these players, they had what Mad Lions didn't. They had experience. They had veteran leadership in a best of 5, a game 5. Silver scrapes are flying in their head. They could fall back on Cacao. When you're looking at your general, when you're looking at your jungler, when the jungler is so important in this day and age of League of Legends in this meta, Mad Lions were looking at Shadow, who is a rookie of a small champion pool, who's had a very woeful tournament and is obviously nervous. And then you have Cacao, who is always jovial, who's always laughing, who's been through the ringer. He's been to Korea, China. He's been everywhere and anywhere in League of Legends. I'm sure a lot of Western fans thought he was retired before they saw him in the Supermassive jersey this split. So when it's game 5, you can look at Snowflyer, you can look at Cacao, you can even look at Zeitnot, and you say you can fall back on these veterans who know how it feels to be in these big moments where Mad Lions couldn't. And when I look at this Supermassive team, they picked a lot of really simple, sometimes executable comps outside of their Vayne game. They picked Vayne. That was weird. Let's not talk about it. That was a really straight. Mad Lions had a lot of CC that could just not make Vayne be a playable character. So outside of that, but a lot of their drafts around Hecarim and Malphite, and they had these really executable go drafts where they knew where to press the go button. They pressed it, and in a team fight meta where getting that opening shot off, the first punch in, if it's a clean punch, you wipe the rest of the map. So I really like their drafts for the most part, outside of that Vayne game. That was weird. They played better as a team. Cacao led beautifully, and I said this on Twitter. I said that I believe this last year when I interviewed him, but Armut's the real deal. Armut is the next big Turkish star. I like that he's on this Turkish team now. I think I want to see how far the Supermassive team can go. It might go to the main event. It might go into some upsets in the main event if they get there. But I think our mood ceiling in the long run is outside of the TCL. I think he's a player who could go to the LCS and start. I think he could go to the LEC and start. I think he goes to the LEC tomorrow and he's one of the better top laners. That's how much I respect Armut. And I think talking to a lot of pros, they also see him as a star, like a Broken Blade or a closer who can go to one of these major regions and perform. So Armut is a stud. He was in the top lane, and outside of Impact, really no one got anything on him. And even Impact had trouble against Armut in some instances. He's an excellent player, and this team, Supermassive, has the right balance of veteran leadership and youthful talent like Armut and Bolulu, who all know their roles. They all have their own identity, and they know how to play as a team. And in this team fight-centric meta, where there's skirmishes all around the jungle, you're playing around Dragon Soul, and you have NA Rams, where it just becomes very wombo combo-y. This team knows how to wombo combo Arda. And Armut's Malphite took over the last game. So this Supermassive team, just A-pluses across the board. They had a very strong day, and the Turkish fans, they deserve this one. They are one of the staunchest and most loyal fan bases in all of League of Legends, alongside Latin America and Brazil. And this is a big win for them. And it's going to be a very fun best of 5 tomorrow versus Unicorns of Love.
Yeah, only a short amount of time to celebrate this one because you have to look at UOL, which is going to be a formidable matchup, and that's happening tomorrow. Speaking of Supermassive, maybe we'll talk about them and one of their players in particular during the Player of the Day later on in the show. But before we get there, let's talk about the other series that shored up. This one wasn't close. This one was not a knockdown, drag-out affair. This was, for all intents and purposes, Tyler, the LGD that many people were waiting to see. And they finally activate versus Rainbow Seven. Jose Diodo out of our boy out of Worlds, but a great showing nevertheless. But LGD is the story here, Tyler. Why did it take so long, in your opinion, to see this version of LGD? And have they shown you enough that you now have a little bit more confidence in them moving forward?
I have confidence in them in the best of 5. I think they are heavy, gigantic, colossal, Goliath-like favorites versus Legacy. I think if Legacy beat LGD, it's one of the biggest upsets in League of Legends history. And this is no shade to Legacy, who are a very good team-fighting team. They are, as we've talked about on the show, they are a machine that's better than some of their parts. Like, they are a team that plays as 5. Like, all their kill participations are through the roof. This is a team that excels in team fighting and getting out of the laning phase and not getting too crushed in the laning phase. We saw what happened when a team tried to lane kingdom them in Team Liquid when TL just kind of ran them out of the park with just better mechanical players, and just they could never get to that team fighting stage. And I think it could be a very similar state with LGD. And especially if Peanut is where he was today, and Peanut was the player of the game for LGD. Every single game, it was bot lane, got a kill off in the early game, snowball from there. Oh, it was mid lane second game, snowball from there. Third game was top lane, snowball from there. Every game, he was influencing the lanes early on and keeping Rainbow Seven, a team that is a bit sluggish in the early game, outside of their comfort zone, and not letting them get to that team fighting stage where they could be, a few thousand gold around and then win through some marvelous team fighting, or Jose Diodo coming up with a big play. And Jose Diodo had a fantastic Lee Sin game to end the day in the game 3, but LGD was just the far better team. It's no disrespect to Rainbow Seven. They were outclassed. Longji and GA were just pummeling the solo lanes all day long. Kramer is still a very big weak point for me. Kramer was quite porous. I'm kind of scared of how he would fare in a group stage of players like Reckless and Ruler and Double Lift for TSM. Mm-hmm. I would be really poor. Even Double Lift in a so-so form. Kramer was getting caught out a lot. He had some really weird moments where he took one-on-ones that he should never in a million years take. I think he's right now the weak link of the team. I think Longji is actually playing quite well in the top lane. He's often seen as maybe the weakest member of the team. But they are heavy favorites versus Legacy. Let's not make a doubt about that. If they fail against Legacy, it's a huge upset. I don't care about the group stages. This LGT team is just too stacked. And we saw what happened. Teal have shown LGD the blueprint how to beat Legacy. They have given them the blueprint of the 2 games that TL destroyed Legacy in. That is the blueprint for LGD. And LGD have similar mechanically talented players in GA and Peanut and Mark to make that happen. So if that happens tomorrow where LGD somehow loses, it's far worse than Mad Lions. Mad Lions are rookies. They are young. They are inexperienced. SuperMassive are a really good team. I think even though SuperMassive lost to Legacy, I still probably in the long run, if I just take one of them, I still think SuperMassive has a higher ceiling. LGD can't lose tomorrow. It would be far more embarrassing because they are so chock full of experience. This should not be a series they lose. And we saw that today where they came in very similar, Rainbow Seven, a team that beat them in the group stage, took care of business. So tomorrow's a big test. Today was a good first sign-off. They got a little bit of their swagger back, a little bit of their groove back, but tomorrow's a big one. They should be going in aiming for a 3-0, and if they somehow lose, it's going to be a very spicy show tomorrow. Arda. It's going to be very spicy.
Just like Stella, LGD got their groove back. Tyler mentioned Mark. Our colleague Emily Rand actually had an opportunity to speak with Mark. That video interview is now available on our YouTube channel /ESPN Esports. There are also a bunch of interviews available there in our archives from Worlds, including with Rays after day one that I conducted. Of course, LGD will be facing Legacy Esports tomorrow in one of two matchups, the other one being SuperMassive versus Unicorns of Love, which brings me to the fact that now 3 of the 4 teams that are remaining in the play-ins are from minor regions, the non-major regions, of course, the LEC, LCS, LPL, and LCK. This always will. Obviously, the memes exist, Tyler. Oh, there should have been other teams invited. Add an extra seed for the minor teams. Look at the way that the LEC performed, or Mad Lions, et cetera, et cetera. We've already addressed that. You already talked about that. That's not what I'm asking here. What I do want to know, and I'm asking this very seriously, is I know that these are big victories for the minor regions, and we've had some great storylines. Legacy has been a great storyline. PSG Talon has been an amazing storyline. SuperMassive performing well. Unicorns of Love came as advertised. We're seeing some great teams. We haven't seen them against the best in the world, according to us, in the group stage, etc. But we're still seeing some great showings here and some fantastic results. So based on what you have seen so far, Tyler, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you make of the minor regions and where they stand versus the teams that you've seen in the regions that you've seen, and is the gap shrinking at all?
The gap is shrinking comparable to the very good teams of the top regions. I'm talking about the second seeds, third seeds especially, but I still think there's a gap when it comes to, as is there in the entire field of the TESs, the top esports, the Damwon Gamings, the G2s even, the JD Gamings. I still think there are 3 or 4 teams that are ahead of the bunch, but below that, it's anyone's game. If you tell me that SuperMassive beat, Rogue in a best of 1 or a single elimination game, I'm not gonna. It's a bit of a surprise, but it's not shocking anymore. If Suning lost to Unicorns of Love, I think more people would be like, okay, Unicorns of Love, they're crazy, they're aggressive, they got their kills there, they snowballed from there. Because looking back, 5-6 years ago, you could honestly say that the minor region teams didn't have good enough players. So there were some, diamonds in the rough, but overall, these players just couldn't hack it comparably to the LPL or the LCK especially, or even North American players for that fact. They just were outgunned. They were outmuscled. It was like watching LeBron James beat up on some high school kids. It wasn't fun. It was actually quite embarrassing trying to watch, Lion Gaming play Siege Against Blaze 7 years ago. It just wasn't even the same game of League of Legends. It was embarrassing. Like this team did not deserve to be on the same field as the one they were playing against. Now, we have guys like Jose Dioda. We have Armut. We have these like mechanically gifted players who are not just elite players mechanically in terms of their own region, but I think in terms of the entire region. Watch Jose Dioda today. Even though his team got outclassed and outmuscled in a lot of those positions, he mechanically had so many slick plays. Like, if you watched him versus Kindred and how many times he beautifully just without nonchalantly would kick Peanut out of his ultimate and just execute him. He's Jose Dioda is a star where no matter where he goes, it just comes down to the infrastructure. It comes down to the infrastructure and the talent they get to play against. So, for the LPL, for TES, they get to play against 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 very good teams, or even good team, worst case scenario, even decent teams on, in the average scale, where for TCL or the TCL or the LCL, for the Russian or Turkish teams, they have maybe 1 good team, 2 good teams they can play against. If you're lucky, 3, but the competition just isn't there. In a world where we had an open circuit, let's say there was an open circuit, there was no domestic leagues, it was, DreamHack Austin, and this weekend's a tournament in Sweden, and oh man, SuperMassive and TES and Damwon are all going to these tournaments, and it's an open circuit. They would improve so quickly. They would improve so damn quickly. And I think them being on their own islands and being, isolated in their own regions, even though some of these teams are scrimming against some of the EU teams and some of the NA teams in terms of INTZ, scrims of NA, SuperMassive, obviously closer to Europe, so they could practice sometimes against the European teams. But I think them being isolated keeps them from ever going over the top of these major regions. But these individual players, they're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jose Diodo could walk into an LCS team, language permitted, if his English is good enough to go walk onto an LCS team. He would be a star tomorrow on an LCS team. Almost every team in the LCS would love to have him as a starter if his English is up to par. If his English and the communication is there, he's a star in the LCS. Same with Armut. Armut, I'm telling you, if he went to the LEC tomorrow, he's a top 5 top laner.
You have to think he's already having conversations. I mean, come on. Look how many Turkish players are in the LCS right now. He's buddies with Broken Blade and Closer. He played with Closer in the TCL. Yeah. Like, come on. We're not being naive here. And you've said this on Rift Rewind before, Tyler, and so has Emily. These kind of conversations happen at Worlds, right? Like the trades or the acquisitions or anything like that happen at Worlds. Yep. You're telling me that these conversations are not happening already? You're telling me that Armut hasn't been approached by the LCS teams that are there, or even someone sliding into his DMs and sussing out the possibilities? Come on. Of course it's happening.
Maybe. I don't want to say for sure.
It could be. I'm not reporting anything. This is all conjecture on my part.
If you're smart, you would be in his DMs. If you would be making plans for Armut if you're a team with money in a major. He's an excellent player.
Barring the pandemic, of course, if there's complications with visas and everything. But seriously, of course you're having conversations. Yeah. My opinion, but anyway.
So the gap has closed when it comes to the field, where it comes to the second and third best teams of these major regions. The Turkish champion, the Russian champion, the Vietnamese champion, who we are missing from this equation because of COVID. Those teams, I think, on their best day, can beat, the Fanatics of the world, the DRXs. These teams aren't perfect. They have holes. All these teams has weaknesses, especially, some of the major region teams. So I think overall, there's a gap still, but I think the gap is those 3 to 4 teams every year that come to Worlds as the favorites. And looking back, let's look back at the history of Worlds. When's the last time a non-top 4 team coming to Worlds, a non-top 4 favorite, won World? It hasn't happened since 2012 with Taipei Assassin. 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 18, 19, and maybe even 20, all of the prohibitive favorites coming in, at least even in the terms of IG of 2018, they were still seen as the 4th best team odds-wise coming into the tournament, and they still won. So I think the gap is there, but the gap is these elite teams and everyone else. I think the gap between regional, the 4th seed LEC and, the Turkish champions, it's gone. It's gone. SuperMassive is a better team than Mad Lions, and they've showed it throughout this tournament. Maybe Mad Lions, if better practice in a different meta, is better than SuperMassive, but it's not. There's no talent difference there. Armut is better individually than Orome, and we can say that. He's an excellent player. So the gap is gone when it comes to the field, but the gap is still there when we talk about Damwon and JDG and G2 and top esports. That's the gap.
As we talk about players that would certainly succeed on LCS teams, the TCL have done the same thing, definitely picking great players, even if during yesteryear, but still performing very well. And SuperMassive is a great example of that. As we move to our player of the day, Tyler, who did you choose from the SuperMassive squad, spoiler alert, as your player of the day?
This was too tough. It was Armut or Kakao, Armut or Kakao, Armut or Kakao. But since I just went on a 5-minute love rant of Armut and how, a top LEC team should sign him tomorrow, I'm going to give it to my boy Kakao. I've watched Kakao throughout his entire career, from the days of being on the KT roster side to moving around the world. Kakao is a legend. He is a former MVP. He was playing back when a lot of these people who are watching League of Legends today weren't watching League of Legends. And I just give him so much credit for how well he played in the series and the tournament overall. I also want to say he's one of the first, if not the only player so far who's shown how Lilia should be played. A lot of players so far in group stages, I'm not going to say who, have played Lilia like she's Hecarim or she's Karthus, and that she can just sit in the middle of the team fight and soak up damage when she is squishy as hell and easily CC'd, and she just gets popped out of team fights. Where Kakao he intelligently, he throws in his sleep ball. I don't know the name for it. Sleep ball is the best you're gonna get from me today. He comes back and forth. It's dicking. It's diving and coming back. It's diving, coming back. He's fishing for skill shots, and he's always running in, running back out. And he's not just full on committing into a huge team fight where he gets blown up. Just watch his games today on Lily, and that's how you should play Lily. And I think how some of the top junglers of the tournament will play her. But he was just excellent all around. His Hecarim, his Lilia, he's an overall just an amazing talent. I just love that he's back on the world stage after so long. I actually thought we would never see it again. I'm always a bit sad that we never got to see his KT Arrows team of 2014 make Worlds. They won the Summer Championship in South Korea, then lost the regionals in an embarrassing fashion, and just never he hasn't been on a top team since. He was on IG for 2015, but they didn't even make it out of group. So, Kikau, thank you for showing everyone how to play Lilia. I hope we see more Lilia play of that caliber as we move into the main event.
Lilting Lullaby.
Thank you.
Is the name of
not Sleepball. Not Sleepball?
Not Sleepball, no. I mean, I like the name Sleepball. I think that should be used on commentary.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have to use official names all the time.
The Sleepball.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of the sleep ball, we will talk about Lilia and other champions as we now shift our attention to who has the power. This is where we're going to talk about certain champions that we have seen repeatedly at 2020 Worlds, and we're going to talk about whether they are OP or completely underpowered and should never be used again. Now, Lilia is a great example of this, as you mentioned, Tyler, and we'll get to Lilia in a second here, about a champion that really doesn't have a great record, but one player is using that champion very, very well. In fact, he used Lilia in games 3 to 5 in the victory over Mad Lions. We're going to begin, though, with one of the, as they are called, the Holy Trinity of champions at Worlds 2020. Yeah. Tyler, overpowered or underpowered Ornn, the Goat God?
You serious, Arda? This is a serious question? Is it a serious question you're asking me? Is it a serious question? It's a serious question. Is it serious? Is it a joke slot? He's overpowered. He's overpowered. He's freakishly overpowered. The man that can do 20. He's in 20 different classes. He's a tank. He's a bruiser. He's a ninja. He's a burst mage. Like it's overpowered, especially in a team fighting meta where all these games come down to these big 5v5, 5v4 team fights around neutral objectives. He's overpowered. It's not even a debate. Like he can do so much for a team. If you're a top winner who can't play Ornn, you should just be kicked out of Worlds because he's overpowered. Like teams are even having to pick Braum to counter Ornn, and Braum sucks outside of countering Ornn's ultimate. When you are forcing teams to pick Braum just to counter one champion, it's a wrap. He's overpowered. We don't have to talk about this more. We're going to see so much Ornn. Ornn is, unless we find a bug in him and he gets, quarantined out of Worlds because they find a bug with him. And it's happened before with champions like Gragas and Lux and other champions. But we're going to see so much Gragas. He's overpowered. He's just a staple of compositions. Like, Renekton can't touch him. Like, maybe Camille if you can split push him. But, like, it's all these all of the meta is coming down to these ludicrous 5v5 wombo combo team fights. And you know who wombo combo is the hardest, Arda? Who? It's Ornn. Yeah. It's Ornn. My man he can wombo combo pretty hard.
Buddy, I'm even laughing at myself. I have to ask these questions, but we already knew this answer.
Overpowered.
Of course Ornn is OP.
Oh, OP. He's OP. Let's go to the next one.
Scorned by the horns. How about Lilia?
She's overpowered, but she's underpowered in the wrong hands, if that makes sense. Like a glass cannon. She's a glass cannon, right? If you put her in the hands of someone who can actually utilize her, she can take over a game instantly. She clears so fast. She can clear all the jungles almost instantly. She can counter jungle like a mad woman. Like she's great with ganks. Like she can take over a map. Her ultimate ability, her sleep is broken as hell. But when you put her in the hands of someone who doesn't know how to use her, they go into team fights. They don't really realize how easily she can be CC'd and how squishy she is. Then that's an issue, right? Where that we saw with Broxa versus INTZ, where he got caught out so many times before a team fight, or he would run into a team fight and not dodge back out, where he fully committed to a team fight and he would just get blown up. And I'm not saying Broxa can't play Lilia. Broxa's an amazing player. He's my man. He's going to groups with Team Liquid, but Lilia is a champion who's overpowered, but she looks very underpowered when people play her not as she should be wielded. So she's very much a glass cannon who you want to be, you won't be jabbing hard. You want to be keeping your distance and jabbing, going in when necessary. But there's a lot of players who just like to rush in and try to go, toe-to-toe with some of these champions in these 5-on-5 team fights and she just gets blown up. But I'm going to say OP. She's overpowered as a champion, but underpowered as we've seen in a lot of the play-ins. But I think when we go to main event where we have, the Kanavis and the Canyons of the world, then we're going to be like, oh, man, this champion is busted.
So Lilia has a 45% win rate, like you said. Cacao has many of those victories. Yeah. Has definitely shown what Lilia play should look like. And I wonder if he's going to entice other teams to ban Lilia against him moving forward. Or we'll see. But definitely Cacao has shown in this tournament so far how Lilia should be played. How about Orianna, the second of the Holy Trinity?
Orianna is neither overpowered or underpowered. She's the perfect champion. She has always been my perfect champion. She is, when people ask me who is the most balanced champion in the game, who is like the quintessential mid laner, it's Orianna. And as we've talked about, wombo combos, Arda. We want that wombo combo, 5v5 team fight, NA Ram. We're battling over Dragon, we're battling over Baron. 5v5 is going to come down to these, sprawling team fights. Who can execute better? And what's a better tool to win those 5v5 team fights than the Shockwave, which can group everyone together? It's the main piece of the most famous team fight of all time, EDG versus SKT 2017, where Faker Shockwave along with the Rakan, Ultimate took a 10k advantage for EDG and threw it out the window, which is all another reason why Rakan and engaged support are such the big thing in this World Championship, because it's all about these skirmishes and 5v5 team fights. So Orianna, not underpowered, not overpowered. She's perfect. She is the perfect person. She's lovely. Never a bad word about Orianna. I love watching her. She's not a boring. I think a lot of people think she's boring. Boriana, Twitch chat, all that jazz. But I like Orianna. She is a champion that I never get. She's been involved in a lot of great matches. And a good Shockwave in the right moment, in the right team fight, is one of the most hyped plays in League of Legends. So let's just say she's perfect. She's neither.
Orianna is hot chocolate after you spent all day in a cold day outside.
Yeah, okay. Just what you need. She's nothing too crazy. She's not like Samira or Yone, where it's like, okay, a bit crazy there, but she's simple. And she's just perfectly designed. She's the perfect champion.
Well, Orianna is 10-1 at Worlds right now. A champion that is 9-5 at Worlds, but completes the Holy Trinity is Graves. What do you think of Graves?
Slightly overpowered. I think he's closer to Orianna than either Lilia or Ornn. I think he fits the meta really well. I think he's a champion that can still be relevant in these big team fights where some of these other early game champions might fall off. We saw a lot of Nidalee early on in the tournament, and a lot of these junglers a lot of these teams try to put all their resources in Nidalee. Didn't really work out for a lot of them. Graves is a decent spot. I would say he's more of a neither as well. He might be a bit tough. I think he's fine. I'm not saying he's not underpowered. He's not overpowered. He's in a good place. I like watching Graves play. He's a dynamic champion. I kind of miss him in the bot lane. He used to be an 80 carry Arda. They reworked him into a jungler. He used to be an 80 carry. Those were the good old days of League of Legends, but he's fine. I think we'll see how it does in the main event. I think with better junglers coming in, no offense to the junglers we had Jose Diodo, Broxa, Peanut, very good junglers, but when we see the Canyons and the Kanavis and the Yankoses, I want to see how the meta shifts in the jungler pool. Because last year, if you don't remember, Echo was one of the hottest picks in the play-in stage. Everyone was playing Jungle Echo. It was like the hottest, sexiest pick, and everyone sucked on it. And then we went to the main event, and no one played it. So a lot of times, the meta can shift from play-ins to the main event.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually excited to see what kind of picks we get in the jungle come the main event.
By the way, if you are fascinated by how the meta has evolved over the years, or even from the play-ins to the main event, our colleague Emily Rand wrote an entire article, 10,000 words, on how the meta has shifted year over year, including play-ins to group stage in the years that existed. So that's on our at espn.com/esports. Our final champion, and you mentioned Armut a lot on this program. He has been great on this champion. What do you say about Wukong?
Good top lane. Stop putting him bot lane. Stop putting him bot lane. Stop trying to make this Wukong support fast incentive thing work. It doesn't work. I know you want to go. I know he's a great champion in terms of dive. Like in these team fights when, you want to get to the back line and get to the AD carry. He's a great team fighting champion. I like him in the top lane a lot. I think he should be a staple in the top lane alongside Shen, Ornn, Camille, but not having him in the bottom lane. If it's bottom lane, throw him in the trash. If it's top lane, I'm good to go. I want to see more Wukong in the main event in the top lane. Don't put him, just stop in the bottom lane. Stop. Just stop. End of story. Stop. Just stop. Mad Lion. Stop. Stop putting Carzzy on Wukong. Just stop. No more bottom lane Wukong. Stop. That is it. Stop, Arda. No more Wukong bottom lane.
I don't play Wukong in bot lane. I will stop. I will listen to you, Tyler. I promise.
If you were in Mad Lions, you would be playing Wukong in bot lane.
Yes.
So stop.
Yes. Well, they should have listened to you sooner then. Team that will continue on at Worlds, they've already made the group stage, obviously, is Team Liquid. And Team Liquid now will await their fate. They have two groups that they can join, Group A and Group B, and the results from tomorrow's remaining play-in best of fives will change the percentage at which they can get into either group. Tyler, can you help us understand the math here on what the percentages are in what scenarios that Liquid can join either Group A or Group B?
I'll make this simple for you guys. Group A is G2, Machi, and Suning. Group B is Rogue, Damla, and JDG. One of those groups is a group you don't want to go into. The other group could be winnable. Could be winnable in some states. Group A is a group of life. Group B is a group of death. Very simple. But Team Liquid fans, if you're out there, if you're watching, you want to be in Group A. I think you match up well with Suning. I think you're better than Machi. I don't know. We've seen how G2 goes. I was there in MSI last year. Not the prettiest, but second place is still a thing. So going tomorrow, you are cheering for, if you want Team Liquid into Group A, you're rooting for LGD. Unicorns of Lovers, SuperMassive does not matter. They're both wildcard teams from different regions. For the probability of getting into Group A, that does not matter. LGD beating Legacy means Team Liquid will have a 66% chance of getting into Group A. Why is that? How the group stage happens is there are 4 balls in a fishbowl, and they bring out a lovely lad and puts his hand in the ball pit, puts out a ball, shows it. You've seen the rigmarole. So the first ball that's selected will be going to Group A of the Group of Life, the group that TL wants to go into. If TL gets picked, then they're in Group A. Congratulations. If LGD gets picked, who beats Legacy, they go to Group C directly. They can only go to Group C because every other group has a Chinese team. So for all intents and purposes, the LGD ball does not matter. If it's picked first, they'll just go to the next draw. They'll just go to the next ball. So LGD doesn't matter. If you pick Unicorns of Love or SuperMassive, then you're screwed for Team Liquid. Then if you see either the Unicorns of Love logo or the SuperMassive logo, TL is 100% in Group B with Rogue, Daemon, and JDG. Bad. Then, but the good thing, here's a silver lining, Arda, PSG's ball. If Team Liquid, if the person, the lad, picks PSG and they're the first ball picked, that's essentially the Team Liquid ball. It's essentially the TL logo. Why is that? Because Group A has Machi in it, who is also a Pacific team. Because Machi and PSG cannot be in the same group, PSG would instantly go to Group B, the next corresponding group. Which means, with the only other group Team Liquid go into full, they instantly go to Group A. which means a 66% chance of Team Liquid going into Group A. If Legacy beats LGD, then it's a 50-50 shot. It's either the TL ball or the PSG ball. TL goes to Group A. Unicorns of Love / SuperMassive ball plus Legacy ball. If those are picked, 50-50%. It's a flip of the coin. That is it, Arda. So if you are a Team Liquid fan who wants to see G2, Suning, and Machi, you are rooting for LGD tomorrow because that's a 66% chance of going into that group. If Legacy pulls off the huge upset, it's a 50-50 flip of the coin. And that is going to be a very, very stressful group stage draw if that happens.
Okay, so let's talk about why to round out this segment. Why would Team Liquid be better suited? You sort of mentioned it at the beginning, but now let's dive into it. Group A has G2, Machi, and Suning, like you said. Group B has Damwon, JD Gaming, and Rogue. Why is Team Liquid? Why do Team Liquid have a better chance in Group A than Group B? Let's break it down. Imagine they get into both groups as hypothetical scenarios. Break down their chances. Well,
first off, I mean, just to be clear, even though PSG did look really good in the group stages of the play-ins, and the APAC region, the PCS shouldn't be overlooked entirely. It's not an easy win in the slightest. Machi is the weakest of the 6 teams in either Group A or Group B. That is a team that Team Liquid goes into, and they are considered favorites. They should beat Machi. That's a team they should beat. So that clear off straight away. That is why Group A is easier. Rogue is the weakest team of Group B, and that would be a tough test. We've heard the TSM Rogue memes forever, but it would be the TL versus Rogue memes if that happens. And then just beyond that, you have Damwon Gaming, whose speed and Canyon, Showmaker, and Naguri, how quickly they play. Even though Team Liquid did take a game off them last year at Worlds, I think this is a much better Damwon Gaming, and we don't know if this is a better Team Liquid yet, but I would not want to pull Damwon Gaming. They just play too fast, and I know Team Liquid played a much quicker style in the playing stage, but a lot of that came down to them just being mechanically better than the laners they were against. And I don't think Jensen and Impact and Tactical and Core JJ are going to have an easy enough time comparably to, going from Legacy to Damwon it's a huge step. It's like 5 steps up in terms of mechanical skill. So you're not going to have the same quicken pace of Team Liquid against those players. So, and then you also have JD Gaming, who play a much slower style, more macro style. I don't think it's an insta loss for Team Liquid, but I do think JD Gaming does what Team Liquid does, but better. So that's not fun. And then if you go to Group A, it's like Suning. I think they're beatable. I think Suning should be favored. I think they should get the credit of being favored in that group. I know a lot of people are like, oh, LPL sucks, LGD sucks. Suning 6-0'd LGD in the playoffs in the region. So Suning is a far better team than LGD and have countered them before. So I think Suning, though, is more winnable than, JDD or Damwon. And then you have G2, and you never know about G2. It's a single game. G2 may troll. Like, J2 should be favored again over Team Liquid, but in a best of one, a single game double Robin format, 1 game a day versus G2, it's possible. It's not out of the possibility, especially with how G2 has looked so funky and up and down this year. So Group A is where you want to go if you're Team Liquid. There's a much better chance of advancing Group A. I'm not saying they will. There's a chance they go to Group A and they go 0-6 because Machi is better than we expected. Suning is amazing, and G2 is just on point. But if you want the best chance possible, Group A is where you're going.
So we're actually going to do an entire bracketology tomorrow's show, which will also begin at 11 a.m. Eastern, and that's when we will know how the groups will shake down. Of course, the remaining playoff series or the play-in series playoffs will have concluded, and then we will also know which teams will go where. So Tyler and I will do an entire bracketology at that time. The reason I didn't ask you your NA optimism level today is because, well, Team Liquid didn't play. So I'm assuming here, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you're at the same level. You were a 9 yesterday.
Oh, I'm a 9. It'll change a bit if they get drawn into Group B versus Group A. If it's Group A, we might go back to a 10, baby. If we're going to Group B, we might be going a bit down to an 8 or 7. Like, my heart might drop
7? Oh, my.
I mean, I respect... We said this earlier in the topic. Like, the gap is closed. There's no gap anymore between a lot of these teams. The gap is between the JDDs and Damwons of the world. And if you're going to a group of those two teams, it's a tough ride. It's a really tough ride unless, one of those teams dips in form or they have a really bad tournament. So That group draw is really important in my point of view.
Last thing to talk about here, tomorrow's headlines. This is where we like to put our prophet hat on, prognostications. We like to predict what's going to happen in the future. So if we were to pick up a newspaper or go to even ESPN.com/esports, we were to see the headlines, we're going to predict one that you may very well read tomorrow. And we like to do this every single day. Tyler, what is your headline for tomorrow?
Do you believe in miracles, Arda? Do you believe in miracles? Oceania, the smallest of the region, the poorest of the region where the players in it talk about how they wish they were born in other regions so they could play in more well-paid off regions. Like the Oceania region is small, it's tiny. It's a region that's never had any success. The most success it's ever had was a day ago when it got second place in the play-in group stage. That was the peak of their success, Arda. Almost last year, Team Mammoth, all those players except Bobbip, who's now on Legacy, left. They all went to greener pastures to get more money to live the dream of being a professional outside of Oceania League of Legends. The OPL, if I had to guess, the OPL in terms of money is probably less than LG Gaming overall as a franchise. I would guess that LGD has more money than OPL overall. It's that big of a discrepancy when we're talking about OPL versus LGD. It's Goliath versus David. It's the smallest region versus the biggest region. It's a team of players who've been around forever, who've been to World Finals, who are world reclaimed. We're talking about Jie, who's been to a World semifinal, Peanut, who's been to a World's final, Kramer, who's been to a World's quarterfinal. And then you have the OPL Legacy team, where they are a team that got crushed by Team Liquid in 20 minutes because individually they could not stack up. This is the same team going against LGD. And I want to believe in miracles, Arda. I want to believe that tomorrow at this time we are going to come onto the show. And I don't care if it puts Team Liquid in Group B. I don't care if it worsens their odds. I want to live in a world where the little guy can topple the giant, where the team with no money, with little infrastructure, with 15K, Twitter followers, can topple the beast of this legendary organization. I want to see Isles and Rays and Tally and Bobbip and Tapoon go to the main event, because if they do, if they can beat LGD and they can make it to the main event, it doesn't matter if they go 0-6 and get, destroying every single game in the main event, it will be so important to the overall infrastructure in the future of the Oceania League of Legends region. Them winning tomorrow could spur on new sponsorships of other teams. It could spur on new players getting into the game. It could create a storm of interest in not just esports media, but general media in Oceania if they win tomorrow and they can make it to the top 16. I want to believe in miracles, Arda. My heart tells me I want them to win. My brain is telling me I'm a freaking idiot and that they're going to get 3-0'd and Peanut's just going to stomp over them and Gia will have a 40 CS lead in 10 minutes over Tally. That is what my brain is telling me, but my heart is just telling me I want to believe in miracles. I want to see it happen. I want to see Oceania be in the sun for one. Every single year they've been a joke. They've been a disappointment. They've been a team that isn't even discussed. In our power ranking show, we spent maybe 30 seconds on Legacy Esports because we did not respect them enough, because the Oceania region has not done anything in the last 7 years to show that they could be a world's contender or even be in the same conversation as LG Gaming. Tomorrow can change everything, Arda, and I want to believe that miracles can happen.
I love that. I had goosebumps.
It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. It's probably
you stole my thunder there, because I was gonna say my headline is you down with LGD. You know me. It's definitely not gonna happen. But I loved it. I loved every second. I had goosebumps, buddy. I had a tear in my eye. You were filling my heart with joy. But at the end of the day, LGD looked a little too strong against Rainbow Seven, and that's why I picked this headline. But I'm with you, man. I want to do the exact same thing. So we will find out if that is going to happen because we only have 2 play-in stage matchups remaining. It's going to be LGD versus Legacy Esports, followed by SuperMassive versus Unicorns of Love. And Tyler and I will be with you here tomorrow on Twitch, on the ESPN app, on Twitter, and on YouTube for our daily ESPN Esports Worlds program. Won't you join us tomorrow? Enjoy the shows. Thank you very much for joining us. See you tomorrow.
I want to believe, Arda. I want to believe.